The Alldus podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
Hello everyone, you are very, very welcome to the AI in Action podcast, and I'm your host, Mark Kelly. Today we are speaking to Nicolas Sauvage of TDK, and we've had this episode lined up for a while now, but we finally actually get to do it. Nicolas, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you, Mark, for having me, and I'm joining you from Lausanne in Switzerland.
Beautiful, absolutely lovely. I'm loving the brightness there, which is fantastic. So what I probably wanted to kind of start off before I kind of get into TDK, what kind of pivotal moments shaped your career, or did you necessarily, was it a kind of a well thought out way to get on that track, or how did that kind of come about?
Well, first, I've always liked technology, and engineering background was for me obvious. So microelectronics, then I moved to software development and licensing software. So I was a software engineer, developing software in assembler code initially, then C, then C++, then Visual C++. So making it abstraction after abstraction. Then I moved to California with InvenSense, which was then my first chance to actually work in IoT and hardware. And InvenSense was acquired by TDK. And that's a chance where within TDK, I proposed to start a corporate VC. The idea started from simply a Stanford executive program where I had two faculty members, Jesper Sorensen and Elias Tribulov, sharing about why you should do a corporate VC, the right reasons to do it, but also all the things that you should avoid, all the mistakes and bad practices of corporate VCs. And that's how I proposed the project. And for the small story, when I presented after many iterations internally, when I finally got to present to the CEO of TDK at the time was Ishiguro-san, I had one slide to explain why, the last slide. And it was all about TDK Ventures as a corporate VC learning about this mega trend that could kill us as a corporation. So think about new market and new technology type of combination versus business group being in the current market, current technology, M&A and R&D looking at the adjacent, so new technology, existing market, or new market, existing technology, which you can predict more easily what could be the disruption. But when it's new market, new technology, you really can't see it coming unless you have an exploration mission somewhere in the firm, like a corporate VC. And when I presented that, the reaction from the CEO was, that's exactly what I want. And I learned 1 year later why he had such a visceral reaction. He was the one in charge of the cassette business before. So he had gone through killing himself with a CD, killing the cassette. And so you could imagine that's not something a CEO wants to go a second time. And so TDK Ventures was set up with that exploration mission to look at all these promising mega trends. We call them the 7 C's inside TDK, and trying to understand where to go and where not to go.
When we look at your background, because you've wore different hats from product management, sales, and you've been in that ecosystem, do you think that's kind of helped how you influence and you approach the work that you do in a corporate venture capital company?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, there's not one job I had in my career that's not useful today. Product management, I think, is probably the most impactful one because product management is like a mini CEO in a way. It's all about defining a product so well that it's going to be compelling, competitive, and is going to have a customer willing to pay for it. And so that product management discipline is helping me even assess which startups we should invest, how we can help the entrepreneurs in their journey. Sales is also a big influence in how I shape TDK Ventures, but also how I look at all the projects that comes from entrepreneurs. For example, one thing we do at TDK Ventures is a net promoter score on the entrepreneurs to make sure that we listen to them as our customers. Because at the end, we see the entrepreneurs as our customers, the heroes of our story. And to do that, you need to actually know what they think, what they want from you. And so once a year, we send an NPS survey, which only has 3 questions. But it's amazing how much we learn from just 3 questions. The first one is from 1, never, to 10, absolutely. How likely would you recommend TDK Ventures to another entrepreneur? So it's actually a higher bar NPS question because it's not a toaster to a friend and family, it's from an entrepreneur to an entrepreneur. The second question is, what did we do well for you? And here we want to open up to know what it is that we did well so that we can double down. We can even improve that beyond. We want to create that superpower that keeps on giving. And because entrepreneurs would have given some positive, then the third question gets a chance to get candid response, which is, what can we do better for you? And it's amazing how many times we learn about things we should improve, we had no idea. And so that's the type of thing that comes from my sales background, which we use every day, and that allows us to actually bring even more value to the entrepreneurs, but not value that we think is valuable to them, but what they validate is valuable to them.
3 questions. I love it. It's impactful. And it's kind of interesting because your mindset from getting to know a little bit more about your background is you kind of work off these kind of 8 words that are ingrained in your iPad. Be quite interested to share that.
So this is a concept I created nearly 20 years ago. And 8 because this is a lucky number in Chinese. Okay, you have to create new constraints to really try to distill what's really important in your life. And so the concept is very simple about the 8 words. It's about what's the most important thing for you in your life at work. And the first few words matter more than the next few words, okay? And it's interesting because initially I keep tweaking them every month and then every year. And then at some point they became very, very stable. And as I started TDK Ventures, I actually changed them again. And so my 8 words are Sheila first. So Sheila is my wife. And that basically means that whatever I do, this is really going to be the most important thing that I make decision on. The next 3 words are scaling impact scalers. And here that's quite important because that's the core mission of TDK Ventures, but that's also my own personal mission. Impact scalers are what we call the entrepreneurs. And the reason we call them impact scalers is because their life's mission is to bring positive impact to the world and to scale it. That's why they create a startup. That's why they want to make it big. And our job as a corporate VC or venture capital is to help them scale. And so scaling impact scalers is really capturing the essence of what it is that we do at TDK Ventures and what I want us to achieve, which is to help entrepreneurs scale quicker with less risk. And then my last 3 words is a deep reflection of what I think I need to improve, which is, so the 3 words are patience and impatience. And here I need to learn when to be more patient. And this is really about this sense of purpose, what it is where we can have patient capital or we need to take our time. And the impatience is a sense of urgency, what it is that we should not delay and really proceed faster. And so my 8 words, Sheila first, scaling impact scalers, and patience and impatience. And I look at them every day, and this is really a way of guiding everything I do that day, and therefore every day.
Brilliant. Lots of nuggets in that, and we could actually have a separate podcast just on each of those episodes or each of those parts. If we look at TDK Ventures and kind of the investment strategy, so you've been recognized for a strong start, particularly within success in Fund 1 and the launch of Fund 2. What strategies have been key to achieving this rapid growth and success?
I don't think we are yet successful. So I think we have a good start, like you said, but we have yet to prove that we help entrepreneurs be very successful. We have to prove that we can bring financial performance, which means returning the funds. And we yet have to prove that we can bring billion-dollar businesses to TDK. So we have a good start, but we are not yet what I would call successful by any means of imagination. But I think one thing that we are very focused at TDK Ventures is, one, living our core values, and two, making sure that we build the processes to keep improving our discipline to bring that value. And I want to touch maybe for 2 minutes on our core values, because I wrote a Medium article about how we reverse engineer the core values. And our core values is a play word because we call them code of conduct. But it's because the word code is C-O-D-E, C for contribution to society, which is what actually our mother company, TDK, core value from 1935 was already all about, which means that everything we do, the entrepreneurs we back, where we invest, where we explore, everything has to be a direct contribution to society and to extension to a greener planet. O is one team reaching for the sky, which is all about making sure that we work as one team, and we always try to stretch the standards, raise the standards for everyone else, also in the ecosystem, and that's why we do this interview today, for example, but also why we wrote thought leadership articles, why we share everything we learn very publicly. Most VCs tend to want to keep their IP, their knowledge, their insights very secret. We actually open it up because we think that if something is useful for other VCs or other entrepreneurs to know, we are contributing to society. D is delivering deep insights, which is a raison d'être of TDK Ventures, which is all about sharing what we are learning, like I just mentioned earlier, not just to TDK, but to our investors, partners, to our entrepreneurs, and to the full ecosystem. And the last one, and I wish I could find a 4-letter word that starts with E, but it's entrepreneurs first. And this is what I said earlier in the interview. We see the entrepreneurs as a customer, the hero of our stories. And we want to make sure that whatever we do, we increase their chance of success, because we believe, and that's why we invested in them, we believe that their project, their life's mission is meaningful and will help contribute to society.
Tell us when you're looking to back and identify potential startups for investments, particularly in underrepresented areas like material science and energy. How do you identify and evaluate them?
So I think it's really good you talk about material science, because if we think about a lot of the breakthrough we need, especially for a greener planet around clean tech, climate tech, we really need breakthrough in material science. At the end, if we look at batteries, energy storage, energy generation, to be greener, it all comes from material science breakthrough. And at this point, one of the things that we take advantage at TDK Ventures is a superpower from world-class expertise coming from TDK and TDK group companies. And if you think about VCs, the most important thing is to know something others don't know and know it early enough to make good investments. And here we have the opportunity to leverage a superpower from the mothership to know where to invest and what are the technologies that are valid and legitimate, and which market opportunities could become massive. And so when you talk about how we decide, we actually, of course, have a very strong team inside TDK Ventures, very technical, that go very deep in what we call deep exploration. So we try to go as deep as possible to identify what problems need fixing. And here maybe I can say something about, we are not in the job of forecasting the future. Some people think that VC is all about predicting the future. I don't know anyone who can predict the future. But what we're trying to do is we identify what would be an ideal world, what would be the ideal future. And then we try to backcast into what's missing for us to get to that ideal state of the future. What are the problems that needs to be fixed? And then we search for these entrepreneurs who are going to be passionate about fixing that problem. And if we invest in them and they become successful, we got closer to that ideal future. Along the way, we get a chance for these entrepreneurs to engage with TDK and other companies of TDK and build intimacy, learn how to fix the problem together. That also helps the TDK teams to know what type of roadmap for the product and solutions we should build, what type of market is harder than we thought, which ones are more attractive than we thought. And so you can see the strategic value gets linked with the success of these entrepreneurs.
And when you look at the impact scaling and driving sustainability, any examples of startups in your portfolio that are doing this well?
Oh, so many of them. So I'm glad you give me a chance to talk about them, and you have to stop me when I give too many examples, but let's start with Ascend Elements. This is battery recycling, or I would actually argue upcycling company, which takes battery scrap and battery spent from EV cars, for example, and can recycle them back to cathode materials. So the unit economics are very good, but it's also allowing us to avoid mining new materials like lithium, cobalt, nickel, and use what we have already used in batteries. We invested in the company when it was only 10 people. And back to the superpower I mentioned earlier, we could send the upcycled materials back to TDK in the labs and validate that they actually had legitimate, valid technical claims. So we were able to know what no other VCs could tell, because no one at the labs that TDK has to validate that the materials were so good and nearly like virgin materials. And so we could invest with this knowledge. Today, they have reached a $1.6 billion valuation, so what you would call a unicorn valuation. They have employed more than 400 people. They are starting to expand in Europe. This is like one of the success stories. Another company which is very interesting is AM Batteries. They have what we call a solvent-free battery process, which allows to build batteries with much lower capex, much lower opex, but meaningfully much lower carbon generation, less CO2. And the roadmap and our hope is that we will get to a point where we can do 50% less capex, 50% less opex, and 50% less CO2 emissions without even using any toxic solvent, and less factory space. Imagine how much value there is in creating this company. We invested in the company when it was only 2 part-time professors. And now they are recruiting and building an amazing company. Let me move to a third one, and then maybe you can stop me after that. But one is nuclear fusion with Type 1 Energy. And Type 1 Energy is one of these companies that we bet on their technological approach, where we believe the science risk have been retired, and now it's engineering risk. And they have a stellarator approach for nuclear fusion, which we believe is the closest we have in terms of timeline to get to nuclear fusion with continuous green energy, without any intermittence, which we suffer, unfortunately, from wind and solar. So imagine having this continuous green energy at really low cost. This would be like guilt-free energy, which then we can use for everything, which I know you're very excited about AI topic. AI, at some point, is going to be throttled by energy supply. So we need to have this type of solution, and we can't just rely on polluting energy. We really want to move to green energy.
When we think about some of the challenges, and you kind of talked about energy, and I think small language models will play a part in that, but also having the right type of energy is very, very important. What type of challenges do you see in the tech and AI sector? And also, how do you see AI evolving in the VC industry? Any particular trends that you can see how it can be helping to make better decisions, for example?
Well, first, AI is a big topic, and generative AI is really an exciting topic. And of course, everyone is talking about it. But I think we have to realize that generative AI and AI to the same extent, there is no cap to using AI. First, you train it, but I'm not even talking about the training. I'm talking about the inference. If you think about computers, you're limited by the number of desks you're going to put your computer on. Okay, and you're going to typically have one at work and one at home, or maybe multiple at home because of your family. Mobile phones, I would argue, once you have 2 mobile phones, that's it. Your pockets are full. You're not going to have a third mobile phone. But the number of queries you could ask a ChatGPT or similar applications is unlimited. It's limited by your curiosity and by the use case you can have in mind. And that's only human to machine. The machine-to-machine inferences that are generated is just endless. So for the first time in our life, we have a solution that we want that has no limit. We cannot predict the limit of what generative AI is going to be used for. And as a consequence, we need to start backcasting from this ideal future where you have free energy, you have free inference costs, so you don't even pay for the inference. Okay, let's assume the ideal future, and you try to backcast to how do you get that. We talked about nuclear fusion as one good solution to get the free energy, but how do you get the free inference? And here what we looked at, and that's what led to our investment in Grok, but also in analog inference, is the top 2 KPIs that we really need to look at is the number of TOPS per watt and the number of TOPS per square millimeter. Actually, you could even argue it's TOPS per square meters because it becomes so big in this kind of data centers that you need to think about the metric a bit differently. The TOPS per watt really matters, again, because of the energy supply, but also the cost linked to that. Now, the investment in Grok was really, for us, exciting because in 2020, when I met with Jonathan Ross, the CEO of Grok, he had a clear vision. And that vision was to get inference cost to 0, which is counterintuitive for a company that wants to sell chipsets. And it was so obvious the market was unlimited that we bet on his ability to execute, and he has executed. And now with generative AI, they have an ability to have amazing unit economics, very competitive on the inference side, that allows for, I think they have now more than 220,000 developers on their Grok LPUs, so LLM processing units, large language processing units. So their LPUs can run inference so competitively, so fast. And there was one KPI which in 2020 I had no idea was so important, which I learned afterwards, was the first token back. And when you think about generative AI, especially in use case where you want a response quick, like a voice agent, you're calling and you want a quick response, the first token back really matters. If you need to wait between 3 to 5 seconds to get your first token, it doesn't feel natural. But if you have it within half a second, that starts to be very interesting. And so that first token back was something that Grok can do so well because of this very predictable, actually it's predictive latency and very low latency, especially at batch 1.
So you've got a variety of different businesses, different industries, similar mindset, similar values. How do you maintain TDK Ventures' strong alignment with TDK's corporation's kind of broader strategic goals?
Well, every examples I gave, and I'm going maybe to go through some of them, is directly related to synergies with TDK. So for example, Grok has a reference design for the board where the LPUs are running on top. This reference design includes more than 50 components from TDK. So when hyperscalers and data centers are going to use that reference design, they start from a reference design that uses so many TDK components today. Now, of course, I can't share too much, but I can tell you there's a higher level of engagements between the R&D teams of Grok and TDK, where they are talking about what could be the next level of passive components which are needed for the next level of reference design for hyperscalers. And so you can imagine the synergies is not just the obvious upsell of components, but even defining the roadmap for hyperscalers, which is such an important market for TDK. If I talk about nuclear fusion, type 1 energy, one of the company in TDK is called TDK Lambda, doing some of the best power supply there is in the world. They already supply for nuclear fusion plants, and now they are defining the roadmap for nuclear fusion.
Nicolas, thank you very much for your time today, giving us your insights from beautiful, bright Switzerland.
Thank you. Let me show you a little bit the background because this is so nice. And thank you again, Mark. It was really nice to talk to you and get your nice questions.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.